While most people are getting hurt as a result of inflation, some people are making money out of it because every problem presents an opportunity. The question is there a way to profit out of this inflation? The answer is yes. So let's take a look at different ways rich people are making millions out of this inflation. But before we get into that, make sure to give this video a thumbs up for the YouTube algorithm. By the way, this is not financial advice, and everything that's said in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes. Number 1. Hold real assets. What most people don't understand about currency is that it's another commodity in the market, and its prices is determined by demand and supply, among many different factors, of course. Imagine a hypothetical example where you have $10 in the entire economy on one side and 10 houses on the other. In this hypothetical example, a single house will cost $1. But if we pour extra $10 into this market, there will be $20, but still 10 houses, which will raise house prices where a single house will cost $2. That's a simple way to understand inflation. Last year, when the economy was on the brink of collapse, the Fed decided to throw trillions of dollars into the economy to prevent a depression by distributing stimulus checks and buying corporate bonds. 22% of the US dollars that are in the market currently have been printed in 2020. Anyone with a basic degree in economics understood that inflation is on its way. That's why whoever could afford a house back then immediately invested in real estate instead of holding cash, especially since interest rates were at their lowest point. It doesn't matter what's the real rate of inflation, whether it's 2.4% or 3.4%, because house prices grew by 15% and by some estimates even by 18 to 20%. This means real estate investors didn't just beat inflation, but rather also profited enormously. But the smartest investors didn't just buy houses, but took mortgages because leverage turns good deals into great deals, especially since interest rates were at rock bottom. Number 2. Debt. Many of you might have a really negative opinion about debt, but that can be really good, especially when there is inflation. If a dollar today worth more than a dollar tomorrow, that means if I borrow a dollar today and return it tomorrow, I have made a profit. The median house price today is around $350,000, but 20 years ago it was less than half of that at around $150,000. Because every year, the real value of the dollar falls, which means the same $150,000 20 years ago today worth $350,000. That's why when the Fed lowered interest rates and started buying corporate bonds, guess who started borrowing all that money? World's largest companies such as Amazon, Facebook, Microsoft, Apple, and so on, although these companies don't need that money at all. Apple is sitting on a pile of cash worth over $200 billion, but it still borrowed money because why use your own money when you can just throw your money into the S&P 500, for example, and get at least a 10% return and borrow money at just 1%. Even if you make a 5% rate on that borrowed money by investing it into your operations, you're still making a 4% profit. On top of that, when you borrow money, you get all of these tax benefits, so you will also save on taxes. If interest rate is lower than inflation, any money you borrow is theoretically a profit. Number 3. Gold. What makes gold unique is that it has always been that asset that preserves wealth, especially during crises. Here's how it works. The moment the future seems unpredictable, gold prices rise. In 2007, gold prices rose from around $600 to $1,000 because of the 2008 crash. Investors panicked and immediately started buying gold. The US dollar might lose its value and even become worthless one day, but not the gold. While the US dollar has lost over 90% of its value in the last 100 years, gold has kept its value since the beginning of civilization. In 2010, investors panicked again and started buying gold aggressively to the point where gold prices hit a record $1,900. But since then, the economy has stabilized and the gold bubble burst. When the economy seems like it's going to grow, investors usually don't buy gold and invest in assets such as stocks. That's why during predictable, stable times, gold prices often fall. But in 2019, when the US started a trade war with China, gold prices started rising again, and the pandemic made it worse. Gold prices crossed $2,000 for the first time. If you take a look at history, gold has always been a great way to take advantage out of inflation. In 1973, a single US dollar was a lot of money, but today it barely can get you even a candy. But gold prices have risen from around $100 in 1973 to $1,800. But I'm not a big fan of gold because it's a passive asset. It just sits there and shines, while stocks or real estate produce something like rental income. It's an active asset that actually provides a service or a product. But why do stocks keep rising? Because the companies behind them keep growing. Apple sells much more iPhones today than it did 10 years ago. That's why it's worth a lot more today than it did 10 years ago. Number 4. Crypto. I was skeptical about including it in this list. However, since a lot of people have profited from inflation by buying crypto, I had to talk about it. But it's very, very risky. If you're a long-term subscriber, you know my opinion on crypto. The technology behind it is undoubtedly great, and it has great potential. But because it is still at its early stage, it's very risky and unpredictable in the short run. One reason Bitcoin rose so dramatically in the last 12 months is because the Fed started printing trillions of dollars, as we have mentioned before. After buying stocks, houses, investors were like, Bitcoin is like digital gold, so let's try to buy Bitcoin as well. A lot of people who were not interested in Bitcoin prior to the pandemic don't really remember that the price of Bitcoin was just around $8,000. Before the trade war, the Bitcoin price was just $3,600. If you were interested in Bitcoin when most people didn't care, you could have earned a fortune, but people usually get excited about something when it's all over the news. But the smartest people got into it before the masses and have grown their wealth by 10 to 20 times since then. Number 5. Stocks. This is my favorite option. Stock prices might not have risen as much as crypto by a few thousand%, but they're much more stable and less risky. From July 2020 to July 2021, the S&P 500 grew by 40%. That's an astronomical return, especially since you are investing in the entire US economy. When you buy a stock, you're buying a share in a business. That's why they're also called shares. Whenever there is too much cash in the economy, the value of these businesses grow, so you're growing together with inflation. On top of that, that money is usually spent on basic needs and wants, which means businesses grow faster, so you're not just beating inflation, but rather profiting from it. Just imagine for a moment how much of that stimulus checks were spent on Amazon or Apple products. If you also count the fact that these companies have taken billions of dollars in loans for almost for free and grew exponentially, you are making a real fortune. And now people are getting back to work, the economy is reopening, people are spending even more, and these businesses are about to grow faster. The key is to keep your money invested in assets that are hedged against inflation. Wealthy people don't usually hold much cash. Usually, they keep a tiny percentage of their net worth liquid for emergency cases. Take the world's richest people. They're so rich because they own a certain percentage of the businesses they have built. As their businesses grow, so does their wealth. Even if you have a few $1,000s, you still can profit from inflation by following one of the ways we have discussed in this video.